Welcome back to another Tuesday edition of the Missoula podcast. Excited to be here again with you. If you didn't have a chance to listen to part one of Drum Coffee, Jenna and John Wicks, go back and listen to that. But today we have part two, focusing on John's career. And what I love about these two is when we reached out to John, he said, I will not do it unless I can bring my wife in. And they're just such a cool couple. They're making moves here in Missoula, and they just love this community. And this is a really fun story. I know you'll love this one. Thanks for joining us.
I want to dive into the music side of your career if we can, John. So a couple questions for you. First one, can you really make my hands clap?
I can.
Can you?
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I attest. He can.
No, where did drumming start for you? What was the beginning?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier we lived in New Orleans when I was a young kid. And my folks made it sort of not an option. You had to choose an instrument to learn. But I think just by being around New Orleans and Mardi Gras and second line funerals and that kind of stuff, the drum lines were just such a part of that. And I think I had my mother's passed away, but she was just adamant about always having me in tow and checking stuff out. She was just amazing at that. And I'm in a lot of spots in places probably where I shouldn't have been as a young child, but she was just so curious that she always had me in tow and always was into music. She wasn't a musician herself, but always wanted to be checking out. So I just got the bug really, really early. I chose drums. They got me a few lessons, and then it just never stopped. I just became completely obsessed. And I still, to this day, I wake up at 5 a.m. I go out and practice every day until my daughters wake up. And so it's just, I feel it's both a blessing and a curse. Being that singularly focused has been tough. It's not the easiest road, but I look back at my life and I just can't believe the way everything panned out. It just it's the best thing I could have hoped for.
Did you have a dream as a kid to be a rock star, to be on the big stage?
It wasn't a rock star per se. It was more, I just want to make this thing work.
Yeah.
I want those drums to eventually pay the bills. And if I can just do that, that's all I want. That's when I felt like I was a success. Everything being on the large stage and those things happening, I'm really actually glad I didn't want that initially because it was so surreal. And I think I even appreciated it and didn't expect it. When I was playing, Lollapalooza for 40,000 people, I was like, this is really my life. I can't believe this. And truly surreal. So I think I had a deeper appreciation for it. I didn't think it was owed to me at all. And I think coming up in the jazz and punk rock community, you don't expect that stuff to ever really happen for you. And so when it did for me, I'm just totally blown away.
Yeah, I mean, we really went down to LA for him to do sessions.
Yeah, I wanted to be a session player, play on people's records. And
didn't go for being in a band.
No, I just wanted to be, sessions paid well.
Yeah.
So
right.
That was my main goal.
Steady work, right?
Yeah, man, hopefully that was the goal.
So went from chasing stages in Seattle and nightly shows to more guaranteed income, schedule.
Tried to. Yeah.
So what did you go directly from the studio sessions to Fitz, or how did you end up with Fitz?
Yeah,
What's the story there?
It's a good question. Like I say, it took about 2 years for the phone to ring. I was just saying yes to everything and extremely driven. And then, so this is a funny story, but Matt Chamberlain, who's a wonderful drummer, who I knew from Seattle, he's one of the top session guys in the world, recommended me to audition. Do you remember the actress Minnie Driver?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was in Good Will Hunting. She's in a show now, I think. She's also a singer-songwriter. And she was looking for a drummer. And the drummer that she normally used was also the drummer with Shakira. His name's Brendan Buckley. He couldn't do it. So Matt threw my hat in the ring. They called me to audition. And I showed up at this dude's home studio to audition. And I see all of my drumming heroes coming out of the auditions. I was like, there's no freaking way I'm getting this gig. If these guys are coming out of the audition. And then right about then, Minnie had this black Labrador retriever that came out of the studio and went right. And I'm a dog fanatic. And he must have smelled my dogs, because came right up to me and we just broed down. And Minnie came out of the studio and saw me with her dog. And I swear to God, I got the gig because her dog liked me. That's awesome. I'm pretty sure. But then that's right at when things started to turn for the better for me. I started to, I was very lucky in that I was introduced to the Porcaro family. Jeff Porcaro and was the drummer for Toto and a big session guy. Joe Porcaro, the grandfather, was also a big session guy. But anyways, the granddaughter, Heather, happened to be a fan of mine and my playing. And she asked me to start playing just club gigs with her, singer-songwriter stuff. She's amazing. And as a result, the Porcaro family just started to show up at our gigs, and I sort of was allowed into that family. We would spend they're an Italian family, and so Christmas is a big deal at their house. And I would show up at Christmas, and like there's just music royalty coming into the living rooms. It was nuts.
And after dinner, they would just play. Everyone would take turns. You're just sitting there like,
yeah. And it was just so lucky that happened, and that turned into me starting to get recommended for sessions. And then I started to realize that if I recorded myself at my little garage studio, I was pretty good at it. And I started to try to imitate old breakbeats from like James Brown records and Brazilian funk records from the 60s and all this stuff. And I got pretty adept at it, to the point where a friend of mine played one of my just solo drum recordings for the head of Atlantic Records. And he said, "Where'd you sample that from?" And he said, "Actually, that's that guy over there, John Wicks." And he was like, "That's not from the 60s?" And he said, "No, that's him." And so suddenly that snowballed into me playing with Bruno Mars and CeeLo Green. And then that snowballed into writing with those people. And so just suddenly it just started to go. And then right then, a mutual friend introduced me to Fitz, who was also at that time kind of going for that 60s Motown kind of vibe. And so he thought I'd be a good fit for Fitz. And I just, for a dive bar gig, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And suddenly, before we knew it, there was just lines around the block for Fitz and the Tantrums. And I sort of had to make that choice. Do I continue with the session thing and try to play on people's records, or do I join a band, which was never my goal? But I started to see all of the top tier session players in LA like taking touring gigs because of technology and what we're able to do at home. Budgets were decreasing for recordings. So a lot of the session guys weren't getting work. So they'd start get touring gigs. So I was like, I'm going to try this band thing and see if that works. It seems to be something in jaded LA. There's like people lining up to hear us. And then Adam Levine from Maroon 5 was having a tattoo done in New York. And the tattoo artist happened to be playing our EP. And he's like, "Who is this?" And again, he thought it was from the 60s. He said, "These guys are from LA. You should go check them out." And so a week later, he was at a gig of ours at a club in LA. And 2 months after that, we were out opening for Maroon 5. And then...
Yeah, it's just like the LA story,
Fitz
right?
was just not a household name at this point.
No, not at all. Far from it.
He was a commercial jingle.
He wrote commercial jingles. Yeah. Which was a good skill set to have for hooks, hence hand clap and stuff like that.
Who was the person that you were the most starstruck when you met him out of all these legends in drumming?
Can I tell you? It actually just happened. I played with Jeff Ament in a band called Def Charlie. It's just a project that he and I started over COVID, but it's done well. And we just played a festival called Ohana Fest down in Southern California. We get done. I look side stage as I'm playing our set, and there's Eddie Vedder, and then and this huge producer, Andrew Watt. And I was like, and I felt like the conquering hero. I get off stage, and who do I see is John McEnroe, the tennis player. And I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Like I was a state tennis player in high school. I was like, "That's freaking John McEnroe." And he's like, with open arms as I get off the stage, like he's going to give me a hug. I'm like, I tried to play it. I was like, hey, John, what's up? And meanwhile, I'm just like, holy shit, this is John McEnroe. And he was like, man, that was killing. He's like, I took a video of your right hand for my drummer. Apparently he's, a decent guitar player and has a band in New York. And then I was like, we were talking about shoes. And I was like, I can't believe this is my life. And this is like,
That's so awesome.
This is just like a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's one of the most starstruck things I've done. And
For
then,
me, I wasn't even there, but your Prince
yeah,
story is
yeah.
my most starstruck.
Prince sat in one night, not with
Prince,
Fitz, but with
that's awesome.
He sat in, and I had my eyes closed and didn't even know he was gonna sit in, and I smelled his cologne. He had this oil on, and I was like, who's wearing that great cologne? I opened my eyes, and there's Prince sitting at the organ, just like, let's do this. I'm like, oh my God, that's
So he'd like
freaking
come
cool.
up to the organ player and
he's
tapped him on the shoulder. It was like,
yeah.
move along.
Get out of the way.
Yeah,
Get out of the way.
right.
And he's like, okay, cool.
So we actually got to play with him.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I
I know.
put it on my resume.
So was it that connection with Adam Levine and Maroon 5 that really put Fitz on the map? Or what was the trajectory to get you
yes
guys?
Yes and no. It was honestly just leaving no stone unturned. Like that was sort of the beginning of like social media being a real presence and Facebook being a real thing and blogs and vlogs and as much of a workaholic as I am, I have to say that Fitz is as well. His drive to succeed was, I think he's one of the only, the few people that had as much drive as, if not more than
Just curious, what was the largest audience you played in front of?
Okay, well, Lollapalooza was big. That was like 40,000. But then we went to play Austin City Limits, and that was even bigger. That was probably like 60,000 people.
And do you get nervous for those shows? Is there still a adrenaline rush before you're on stage?
Definitely an adrenaline rush, but not.
It's who you are, what you do. You just
yeah.
drum and roll with it.
Yeah. I think honestly, sometimes I get more nervous for the small club shows because it's so right there.
Intimate.
There isn't like the bike rack style barriers between you and the audience, having them right in your face can be a little more exposed sometimes. But I like that energy. I think I actually prefer the smaller, sweaty club.
How about
energy.
your favorite show, looking back?
Yeah, that actually happened just at the beginning of COVID. We didn't realize, but we had been #1 in South Korea for over a year. And literally we had no idea. And which is... Anyways, that's
interesting.
Yeah. It was a little bit frustrating, I have to be honest, between the label and our management. That's a little point of contention with me. But anyways, we finally figured that out because the Olympics were happening and we would hear hand clap playing in the background during every event. I was like, they're playing our freaking song. We've been #1. Why aren't we going over there? So finally,
all the dance. Remember? We found all these TikTok.
There was a viral TikTok thing.
Mhm.
That's why we made it big in South Korea. Is there was a dance troupe over there that did a thing to hand clap. So at any rate,
K-pop thing.
Yeah. So we went over there, and the first show was this stadium just filled, and I've never had a perfect show where I felt like I played absolutely everything perfectly, but that was about as close as I came to it, and just being in that weird environment where you'd never been before and not knowing that you're a rock star when you show up. And it was surreal. It was really super special.
They knew all the words.
They knew every word.
Yeah.
The dance troupe came out on stage with us. And it was just,
That's awesome.
That was it.
John, was there a time when you were close to quitting? Or was it not even
so many?
That was cyclical. That was like every 6 months pretty much.
Yeah. It was... the business aspect started to eclipse the enthusiasm for just practicing in general. And that was honestly that combined with just missing out on a lot of events in my daughter's
You
lives.
got twins, you're on the road 2/3 year. Jenna, how
Mhm.
did you handle that?
Well, we did all right. We've talked about this a lot. Like, I guess, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning, just the difference in kind of the generational thing and how much of a hustler you had to be. And I think you still do, especially in Missoula. But, we were like, I was in school full time. I taught dance classes after school. Then I went to my restaurant gig, like 7 days a week we were doing stuff.
Yeah.
And so, I think I just kind of always had that kind of hustle mentality. So, I'm not lying. I'm not going to lie. It was difficult.
Yeah.
And there were definitely times, especially at the beginning when we weren't making much money yet. And I'd had these 2 infants. I mean, the first year of their life, he was gone we had to count it up 182 days or something insane, and we didn't have enough money for childcare. We had lost the business because childcare in LA and having a business in the recession and having twins didn't add up. So I was home with them alone. And so, I'd be spit up on and trying to get them bathed and sweating and there's crying. And then I would
call and say, hey, I'm at this really sweet indie cafe in Louisville. It's pretty sweet.
Or I'd see a post of great run. And I'd just be like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
I just want to shower.
But at the same time, he was keeping us afloat, and I am all things.
So you weren't on the road with the girls. Family wasn't.
No, I mean, we were we did. No, not really. We had one summer that we had already been here, but they did a 3-month long tour with One Republic and weren't coming home. So the band by that time all had families except for Noelle. And so they ended up doing a family bus, a 3rd bus, and we all got 2 weeks on the bus. So we did, the girls and I came along with Canada, East Canada, and that was hilarious because the girls were, I don't know, what were they, 8? Maybe. And you'd be we'd get off the bus, we'd park in this tiny little Canadian town and you have to park and let the bus driver sleep. It's, they're all union, so they can only drive 8 hours and then you have to stop. And they get a room and you have to waste the day until they're done sleeping. And you think it's going to be all glamorous, right? And so we'd be in essentially a Holiday Inn parking lot and be
out in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, what are we going to do? Yeah. We try to find, a mall or things to do. And we'd get off the bus and then all the techs and everyone working for the band they're all in black and they're
where's the bar?
Yeah, where's the bar? And then me and the girls are behind what are we doing? Oh, this is so great. It was such a trip. You could just, it was just hilarious.
Yeah, it's
but
a different lifestyle.
It's a different lifestyle.
What are some of the life lessons you've learned from career in music? I mean, no doubt it's a love, a passion, a hobby, but it became a job.
Yeah, that's really well put. That's probably the lesson. I think, perception is reality, and you have to realize that with your audience. They think there's a certain thing that's happening, and in reality, that's not really the case. It's a tricky lifestyle, being on a bus, living out of a backpack, and doing it for that long. There is glamorous times, if you reach a certain degree of success, there's some pretty cush things that can happen occasionally. But I think the lesson is that I've learned is that you can't let the business aspect of that industry eclipse why you initially got into it in the first place, which for me is just the process of practicing. I love just being alone with my drums and trying to get better and continuing to trying to get better. But there was a point with which there was so many people asking for things or lying to you about things, or, it just got to a point where that industry, I was like, okay, I don't remember the last time I practiced. So I'm going to have to get the heck out of here and go and, figure out how to enjoy my life again and be around my wife and kids. Yeah. So that happened a year ago, last October, is when I was like, okay, I was waiting for a sign, and there was one interaction within the band where I was like, I think that's my sign. I've been waiting for a sign for about 5 years, and that was it. And so I called Jenna and I said,
I think I'm going to do it.
I think I'm done.
Yeah.
And she said, cool. Okay. You've put in your time. It was 14 years. I was hitting it hard with them. So
was that any second guessing, leaving fits and tantrums?
Not at that point.
It was clear.
It was very clear at that point. There was second guessing up to that point, and I'm really glad I didn't up to that point because it made sense. Yeah.
The guys in the band, the crew.
Yeah.
Shoot, Bruno Mars, Levine, all the names you mentioned, CeeLo.
Mm-hmm.
Do you stay in touch with any of those? Do you still have relationships, or was it just fleeting because you were in the moment, happy on the stage and show, or some real relationships come out of the industry?
The one of my dearest friends is James King, who is our saxophonist, or is the saxophonist with Fits into Tantrums, and I speak to him every week. They all live in LA, so there's that geographic thing there, barrier, but I still have a close friendship with him. And one thing I will say about myself that I'm trying to work on is I sort of don't ever really look back at all, and to a fault, actually. I have some dear friends that I played with for years in Seattle that when I moved to LA, it was sort of like that just stopped. That part of my life was just gone. And there were people I really cherished, but I'm so driven that I forgot to just check in with them. And so it's something I'm working on personally. Like I'm trying to, reconnect with those people and not make those same mistakes again. So I think
one friendship though that I've loved to see is you and Jeff. I think you wouldn't have been able to obviously do music without the knowledge that you two are both in Missoula.
Yeah, Jeff Ament and I have become dear friends, and that's a weird story in itself. Like I just used to make his coffee, at a cafe, and it was at the height of Pearl Jam's complete insanity, where he couldn't go anywhere except this one cafe in Queen Anne where I lived and worked, and it was nuts seeing what that guy was dealing with. And we didn't really know each other well, but we had one mutual friend, our buddy Curtis Names, who it was just, it's crazy. Like when we really think about it, Jeff and I had 1 degree of separation since like the mid 80s. Like all of his bandmates well, not all of them, but some of his bandmates from Bainbridge Island, my high school, and then the coffee thing, and then all of our mutual friends within the music world. And like finally we met at a Christmas party here in Missoula. And I was like, hey, man, I'm a dear friend of Curtis's, and I know you are too. And I had lost touch, exactly what I just described. And I told Jeff, I'm like, I screwed up and I lost touch with my buddy Curtis. Can you put me back in touch? So we took a selfie, sent it to Curtis, and then it was on,
That's awesome.
And it's just been like this, I don't know, he's just such a good person and a dear friend.
Cool story. Full circle from a cafe in Seattle to here in Missoula.
It's crazy, man. Like I'm just reflecting on that. It always just blows my mind. And it's been so fun working with him because there's no ego, and he's already been there, done that kind of, so that
you guys just love it.
Yeah. We're just doing it for the hell of it. Yeah.
No doubt. You two just listen to your stories from the business to music, and the family are driven individuals, goals, go out, accomplish, get things done. What's the future? I don't know. I guess a question inside of a question. Did you have to reaccustom to, was there some culture shock of reaccustoming to life at home, not being on the road, figuring out what to do with yourself, what Monday through Friday looks like?
I'm still dealing it.
And what's the future look like? What's next for
Well,
family?
you go ahead. I feel like I'm hogging.
No.
Yeah.
You're a good storyteller. I think for drum, we're just pushing that wholesale side of things. We just got a good food choice finalist, which is we put in 3 different coffees. There was 2,000 entries, and we got into the top 7 in our region. So, we're just trying to do stuff like that, get out there a little bit more and try to expand outside of Missoula. And yeah, it's going well. We're so, COVID sort of brought our trajectory down, but we're still on the up. And you got some good stuff coming up.
Yeah, it's different. It's taken me a good year to sort of detox from that lifestyle and figure out how to be a dad. And now I'm working at University of Montana trying to figure out. That's a whole different set of challenges there. I'm a bull in a china shop there. I expect things to be done quickly, and that's not the way the university works.
And he's not an academic.
I literally finished my bachelor's over COVID via online through the University of Maine.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right?
My parents are looking down somewhere. Finally.
Yeah, right.
Finally get something in his life.
But I needed to finish it in order to teach a lecture class at UM.
Right.
So it was a good excuse.
He worked hard.
And so I did. Yeah. So anyways, but yeah, it's someone described working in a university like pushing a marshmallow, where a giant marshmallow where it just pushes, then it pushes back, and then you push further. And I could see that's a pretty accurate description of it. It's a little frustrating. I'm not going to lie. Like I have the benefit of over 30 years in the real world on the street, in both in poverty and success, and I feel like know what works and what folks should be working on, students, what they need to know to protect themselves when they get out. And it's slow. I just want things now,
Just being from the outside, it's been pretty amazing just to think about from our perspective. You go in there's all these kids coming in and they're paying their money to learn, but they're really learning to be like concert musicians or, essentially playing jazz gigs around, and I think what John is really trying to bring to them and the industry, the music industry has changed so much, and there's certain ways to make money now, and trying to give them the tools to make money. It's recording yourself, how to do that, what things to study, and
how to not get screwed in publishing,
how to market yourself,
advocate for yourself, and how to brand yourself, how to, that kind of stuff.
Those things weren't there. They're not at the school,
Yeah. So, which is why, honestly, Jen Kavanaugh, who's now our co-dean of the College of Arts and Media, it's one of the reasons she brought me in was A, because I'm, as you can tell, very energetic, and B, that I have that real world experience that no one had. So, it's been an eye opener for me. It's been really good, and it's just nice to be home for ballet recitals and birthdays and stuff.
I was just saying how cool it is that you can use your life story, your experiences, good and bad and different, and use those to impact the next generation.
That's the goal.
That's
Thanks,
really
man.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's
that's
really cool. I
He
think
is
it's awesome that
so
Missoula
good
has
at it.
you two who love the community, love the university, love making a difference, and I appreciate you two.
Thanks.
My last question, then Stephen, I'll let you wrap it up. Is you did say you're still doing a lot with music.
Mm-hmm.
You and Jeff are playing. Any upcoming shows, events, recordings? What's on the horizon?
Floofy Boonie, my favorite.
Oh yeah, I have this.
God.
I don't know if you realize this, but we have another. Somebody you should get on this podcast. His name is Jesse Phillips. He's a bassist who grew up in Eureka, Montana, moved to New Orleans for college, and then hooked up with all these guys from Birmingham, Alabama. He's in a band called St. Paul and the Broken Bones. They're wonderful.
Great name.
Yeah. Great band. Who
They
I
are
actually just went out and saw their drummer dislocated his shoulder, so I went out 2 days prior to their tour starting and played with them for a week. It was a pleasure just to sub for him. But at any rate, Jesse and I have a duo that it's spelled Fluffy Bunny, but we put umlauts over the U's, so it's Floofy Boonie. And it's like a power metal duo.
Oh, it's so fun.
It's really fun, super high energy. We just played at Free Cycles with a bunch of all-age freakazoids.
Is that online
Oh,
anywhere?
it's like-
Is it on
No,
Spotify,
unfortunately,
or can't find
No,
it?
we
not
will be
yet.
though. We're
Yeah.
recording next week, so. But anyways, that's
There was like a mosh pit going on with
Oh
all
my
those kids.
gosh.
It was the best.
It was great.
It was so great.
It's super fun. But yeah, it's, I will say it's a weird time. I'm 52 right now. And so like, it's this weird thing, like where I have this struggle trying to go, okay, you're 52, man. Really? You're going to try a metal band at this point? I'm like, is that my red sports car convertible? It's like, that's my midlife crisis. And I'm like, okay, if that's it, okay, cool. That's fine. Whatever. It's a good way to stay in shape. So that's been the main goal is that. And then Jeff and I wrote the soundtrack to a show called Under the Banner of Heaven, which was on FX. Wonderful show. And so it's just things like that. And we just got offered a spot at Bumbershoot, but he's with Def Charlie, but he's on the road with Pearl Jam. So we're not going to be able to do that. So I told him.
Dang it, Pearl Jam.
Yeah, man, right?
I
That
love
little band.
Bumbershoot.
Yeah.
Bumbershoot's amazing.
But yeah, so lots of good stuff happening. And then there's a great saxophonist who are really just, I can't even believe he lives here. He's played with all my drumming heroes, named Lauren Stillman. He lives here now. And I've been playing in a jazz trio with him and this great bassist who teaches at UM named Tommy Seipel. And just doing that, it's very free.
Sounds like life hasn't slowed down for you at all.
I can't.
He
I can't
can't.
stop.
He really
I
can't.
can't stop.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just watching him from, we were in our early 20s, and I don't have that brain chemistry of his, blinders on, focus. I don't know very many people that do what he can do. He will literally eat and drink drums for 20 hours.
We balance each other out.
And sleep 4 hours and get up and repeat.
Yeah, that's why I
Always.
got into ultra running. Yeah, I was like, doing 50 and 100 milers. And it's just that brain that I just can't stop. That's the only time it stops is after about 50 miles. Finally, it's just like, oh, okay. There we go. I get it.
The pain in the legs.
Yeah, right.
It's like the pain that, the pain is so extreme. You don't think of anything else. So
Bliss.
yeah. Yeah. Bliss.
I think that's a good place to close down. Thank you guys so much for coming into the studio and being on our podcast. We're so glad that you found Missoula.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us. It was a really fun one. Thanks
That
for the
was
great
fun.
questions.
You bet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
What's up, Missoula? This is Nick Balla, producer of the Missoula podcast. We truly appreciate you hanging out with us as we dive into the stories that make our city special. If you could do us a quick favor and follow the show wherever you are listening, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, maybe you're watching on YouTube, so hit that little subscribe button. It really helps us out. Head on over to www.themissoulapodcast.com for more information, and we'll see you next week.